The landslides at Mundakai and Churalmala in Kerala's Wayanad district have left a trail of destruction and devastation on a massive scale. But it's just a grim reminder of what lies in store for Kerala and the Western Ghats region come monsoon. Be it flooding or landslide, the destruction is just the same. The debates on the causes and discussions for the landslides will be a matter of concern, yes. But what is equally important is to look forward. Living in a region that is prone to landslides is not just an option. It is some people's livelihood. Where will they go next? And at the same time, landslides that are affecting infrastructure are not an uncommon occurrence along the Western Ghats. But the need of the hour is to look at long-term solutions, a comprehensive set of processes, constructive talk as well as action. We are here to discuss the measures that can be taken to avert such a future disaster. I'm joined by Dr. M.N. Rajivan, former Secretary of Ministry of Environmental Sciences, Devaditya Sinha, Lead of Climate and Ecosystems at Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, and Dr. K. Soman, Retired Head, Resources Analysis Division at Center for Earth Sciences and Studies. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at India Today SoSouth. So, my first question, anybody can take it up. Right now, we are in the rescue, relief, and rehabilitation process. What next? After rescue, relief, and rehabilitation, what next? Right now, we are in the rescue, relief, and rehabilitation process. What next?
Well, so what next is very difficult to answer. So we need to rehabilitate the people. That's most important thing which we need to do now, because the suffering was very high level of sufferings. People have lost their lives. People have lost, damaged their houses. People lost their houses. So rehabilitation will take a lot of time. So at the same time, we need to learn the lesson from this episode of landslide, what really it caused. And we need to do a scientific assessment, what really it has caused so much devastation has happened because of, whether it's mainly because of only heavy rains. Normally, the Western Ghats, the landslides occur due to heavy downpour. And so the question is whether the rainfall was extraordinary. It was very high on that day, for some last 2-3 days before the event happened. And only the rainfall was, or also the human intervention, also in terms of, for example, changing the slope, making the topography different, land use changes, etc., also caused this landslide. This is a big assessment which we need to make. So my point is that rehabilitation should be done by the government quickly, and should be restored. The faith of the people should be restored as early as possible. At the same time, scientific community should come together and try to learn what really happened. And in future, if something happened, then we should be able to tell the people at least a few hours before that the landslide is going to happen. So such kind of early warning system, whether we can really do, because the heavy rainfall events are going to increase over Kerala for next many years now to come. And because of the global warming, climate change, the intensity of precipitation and rainfall is increasing everywhere, including Kerala. The characteristic of Kerala rainfall has changed. Now it is become more convective rainfall. It rains very heavily in a few hours than it used to be in the past. So we can expect these heavy downpours in the coming years. So whether it will lead to, all heavy rains may not lead to landslides. So only very particular occasions it leads. So question is, what are these occasions? Whether we have learned the lessons, and can we really predict in advance, at least few hours before the landslide happens? So we need to do an assessment, and also the all multi-institutional kind of collaboration we should have to understand and also to predict the events.
My second
Can I make a little supplementary input to that?
Dr. Soman, please go ahead.
Can I make a can I make a supplementary input into that?
Go ahead.
Say one thing, in the disaster management protocol, there are 3 stages. One is when you have a disaster, this is rescue, relief. The next one is rehabilitation. Then, in order to not get into the web of disasters frequently, you have to think about plans and programs to prevent it. The prevention means landslide you cannot prevent. You can prevent you can reduce or mitigate the risk to life and property. That's the hazard. For that, after each calamity, there should be a scientific appraisal, which unfortunately doesn't happen in our country, not only in Kerala, total. And what you call state of the art science, say for example, these landslides you are saying, I mean, it is a regular business, but with an increased rainfall, Western Ghats, which are more stable than the Himalayas as a mountain range, now is subjected to frequent spells of landslides after all the accelerated rain incidents. Not only, when we were looking at the last few incidents from 2019 and 20, what we are saying is the landslides originate far away from the disaster site. In Petimodi, it was 3 kilometers. In Puthumala, it was 2.5 and 3. And in this particular case, it is 4 or 5 kilometers. That means one has to seriously look into the causative factors of landslides in this terrain. I mean, be it in the Western Ghats on this one, and that cannot be on a standard path. Like some people say, there are few parameters like rainfall, slope, some soil thickness. No, lot of structural details, because these are vulnerable structured. You are seeing the sort of boulders you are saying in Chural Mala and Mundakai, they are say 1 by 1.5 meter size up to. That means huge boulders where fractured rock sitting on top of the hillock, top of the mountain. They had naturally the rainfall intensity and its total quantity. That was the trigger. But that trigger means from far away it is coming. So if we would be able to do a sort of risk zonation for landslide, especially in populated areas, that's a task. And give the notice to people, these are risky, 1, 2, grade 1, 2, 3. This is the only way, but unfortunately we don't have the will, we don't have the institutional support, though we have a number of institutions created from the British days onwards to our recent. These institutions are not asked to do specifically what is to be done, and they don't have the guidance, because now you recruit scientists, offer a position and a chair, they start doing what they understand. There is no sort of training, unlike a doctor who comes from a hospital with a patient interaction. This is one of the biggest problems in Indian science right now and during the time of Nehru. During the time of Nehru, most of the scientists got trained elsewhere, where capacity was there. And that capacity building didn't take place in this country so far. Now it is just like a routine job. This is the biggest hurdle that we are facing.
I'm going to interrupt you there, sir. I'm going to ask you, you said capacity building, but how can you, what is the capacity building that you are talking about? Is it giving them groundwork? Is it giving them data for more research? Is it making them go interact with the locals so that they can provide data and that can be analyzed by these scientists? What exactly can the scientists do to look forward to what has happened? What we are looking at not to repeat what has happened in 2024, in 2020, in 2019, and that is just Wayanad. Puthumala, Mundakai, Churalmala are just Wayanad in the past 5 years, and that is because the level of destruction was high. That is why they saw the news headlines first. They were in the news cycles longer. But as of right now itself, there is a landslide that happened in Himachal Pradesh. There are landslides, multiple landslides happening along the Western Ghat in Shirur. 15 days ago, the entire Malayalam media was up and hue and cry for this one trucker missing. And there were in Shiradi also, it has happened 2 days ago. what can the scientists do now to look forward? How can we prevent it? What is done is done. What can we do to reclaim what is gone? What can we do to avoid what is to come?
Well, there are two components to this one. Natural hazards we cannot stop. What we can mitigate and reduce is the hazard. For that, we should understand what are the causative factors behind, say, for example, landslides. So landslides, for example, in the Himalayas, they very different from what is happening in Kerala, because the causative factors are different, meaning the strata, the rocks are different, their stability is different, then the triggering mechanisms are not the same. All these factors, and especially fragile areas in the Western Ghats, if you have to identify, we should have totally detailed structural mapping. You can use all the tools from satellites, drone survey and everything, but finally the ground truth has to be elaborated and brought out. And then population centers, say for example, one thing I can tell you from in Mundakai, I saw a TV shot below the present, because this this river was little incised there. That means went into deep. Bank was a little exposed. In one of the banks, that is on the right bank, what I have observed is that about 0.7 to 1 meter below from surface, there are rock, not boulders, rock pieces, that is abrupt. Rock pieces emerge in a place whenever there is a sort of a flash flood and a landslide. Otherwise, it will be a rounded one. So that way, if you are excavate little deep and deep, you can see how many spells of landslide in an area has happened. If that is brought out, you can always tell, though there is a river terrace, a flat terrain like in Mundakai or Chural Mala, we can always advise people by zoning. This is a very, very prone landslide area with past records. It's not only historical, geological. And this has to be done for most of the populated areas in the Western Ghats, because in Kerala's Western Ghats, problem is more and more areas are occupied by people. They are vulnerable to all those sort of these things. They have to be educated. They have to be indoctrinated that this is through scientific means. Here, exactly what I want to say is capacity building. The institutions are there, but the people have to be trained to look into things like what you call a very experienced surgeon. That for which maybe internal capacities are not sufficient. Please, that is what I would like to say.
Devaditya, I have my next question is to you right now. Who is responsible? The state, the center, development, or locals? Because this disaster is a culmination of actions by each and every stakeholder that I have mentioned so far. Who can be held accountable here?
Yeah. The nation has to take.
You're on mute.
Yeah, the nation has to take the responsibility. Why I say people, a country like India, where
Dr.
most
Soman,
people are.
Dr. Soman.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Devaditya,
Yeah.
the question was for you.
Yes. So thank you for asking this. Actually, I will say that it is a failure of the government for sure, a failure of the institutions. But I will say that, why government is because, see, there has to be political will. Like sir was mentioning that, institution capacity and all these things. Let me remind you, like this disaster could have been avoidable. Like, the question you need to ask is, was there a warning before? The warning came 14 years ago. When this report of Madhav Gargil came, we said that 60% of the Western has to be notified as a ESA. What happened? States were not willing to notify. And the central government also not willing to notify. Then they created one more committee. The committee also said that 37% must reduce. Then it was criticized for dilution. Even that also not notified. There are 5 draft notifications. Till date, we have not notified any part of Western Ghat eco-sensitive area. Now tell me who is responsible here? Because see, we are a democracy, but we are a constitutional democracy. We follow the law and order. If you leave to the people also need guidance. And sir was telling a capacity of institution, but see, for common person, they follow the law, what the law allows them to do. And and I think here the environmental laws and policies were not followed. The Ministry of Environment and Forest, which has the power under the Indoor Protection Act to notify any areas ESA or district activities, they didn't do anything. The states, of course, they have been protesting. So I think the first liability has to be on the state. Second, on the on these institutions which were not able to perform their duties independently. Because see, even if there is scientific rigor, whatever, until there is a political will, you cannot bring those kind of laws and enforce them. Even the laws are there. You need enforcement also. So to answer your question, it was avoidable, and this has been happening all over India, and this is going to increase. We have seen since 2013 this Uttarakhand flood. Also, there was a report. This said WI report which said there should no dams in Uttarakhand, in the entire Uttarakhand, but state doesn't listen. The center didn't listen, and the same in Western Ghats. So scientists have been saying this thing. All these things, alarm bell has been rung, but no one listens, and we wait for disaster, and then we focus on this mitigation or whatever. My first focus should be avoiding this kind of thing. I hope I answered your question, what you asked.
Dr. Rajivan, my next question to you here is, after taking off from what Devaditya said, you were in the Ministry of Environmental Sciences. He said, the ministry has the laws in it. What could have been done, or what can be done in the ministry now to enforce the laws that are already existent? Not just policy, you talk about new ones, incorporate new ones, but how to enforce the current ones? Or what were your challenges when you were in the ministry to get it enforced?
Well, I think I was not in the Ministry of Environment first. I was in the Ministry of Earth Sciences. We are not responsible for implementing any Gargle report.
Ministry of Earth Sciences.
So I'm not able to comment on that. So I'm not able to comment on that. The only thing is, I want to say that, and if you really go to an organization called USGS, United States Geological Survey of India, a very prestigious, very well-respected organization. If you go to their site and search for example, landslides, so there's one beautiful paragraph is written: the slopes that have been modified for construction can be more susceptible to landslides. Modification that can impact slope stability includes grading for road or house building, vegetation removal, excavation or piling earth of debris, irrigation or rerouting surface water. So these are all the things to be. These are all the things which we do on the slope of the hills, especially Western Ghats. So this will really add to more problems to the existing problems in the Western Ghats, and it can cause landslides. So human intervention is an aspect which is we need to be very careful. But I cannot comment on Godgill's report, etc. So I'm not competent to do it. I'm not authorized to do it.
So, as being in the Ministry of Earth Sciences, are there any laws? Are there any policies that were in place when you were there? And what can be added to that to help the ministry that is actually looking at, or that will be looking at? Or should there be a comprehensive talk between the two, where the two disciplines should come together to work together to avert the any such disaster?
So, see, in government, we have a system of interinstitutional support, interinstitutional collaboration. As far as landslide is concerned, it is the Geological Survey of India is responsible for studies on landslides, as well as for developing prediction system, etc. So, Ministry of Earth Science, as such, don't have a mandate to do some prediction on landslides. They do prediction, but they do prediction only on rainfall. For example, whether heavy rainfall is expected, etc. But as far as landslide is concerned, it's a Geological Survey of India. But Ministry of Earth Science has a good collaboration with GSI. And so we need to have an interinstitutional mechanism to collaborate each other, try to understand what they are doing, what we are doing. And for example, for landslide prediction, rainfall could be most important inputs for them to make the predictions. So we have such collaborations but then ultimately it has to made it into operational. Ultimately, the aim is to save people, isn't it? So whatever you develop, it should not be on paper, it should be operationalized, and also it should be made it into operation so that people are benefited. So that is not really happening. That's only my opinion.
Devaditya, taking off from what Dr. Rajivan said, he talks about there being interdisciplinary committees, or there being there not being any particular mandate for at least his ministry, but there are interdisciplinary interdisciplinary interactions where where policies can be made, where policies taking into consideration, considering earth sciences is, as Dr. Rajivan said, is looking at rainfall patterns and such things that causes things. And you are looking at climate and ecosystem. You being with Vidhi, your area of expertise is climate and ecosystem. The environmental sciences is also looking at the geology, the terrain, the climate and how it affects it. What is the policy that can be formed now? Because now it is not any one particular science or one particular discipline that is working in isolation. One thing is the causality of another, which affects another one altogether. What is the policy that can be formed now? What should be the most comprehensive? What is the first policy, the first step to build something that will avert and also stem what is happening now when it comes to the entire ecological change that our diverse southern peninsula, Himalayan region, northeastern, all of these things are facing?
Yeah. So I think the answer is very simple. You have to notify the ESAs as suggested in the ESA committee of Godkill and Kasturi. And this area, Wayanad was, I read it was part of the EZ1. It was like area where there has to be complete ban on any red industry or any environmental unsustainable activities. So that has to be done at a priority. And secondly, I think where we are lacking also like strengthening of environmental laws, because see, in last few years we have studied that with you also, that laws have been systematically diluted, relaxed to make the way for the development in forest areas. If you take the example of Forest Conservation Amendment Act, which came last year, it significantly relaxed the norms. Okay, now one hand you have this climate crisis going on. It is not even threat, now it is happening. And we know this is going to increase. So, we have to make our laws strong, first of all. We have to take a call. Some area has to be left sacrosanct. We cannot touch them, and you cannot, bring those unsustainable activities like tourism into resorts and infrastructure. Like there are some tunnels being planned in this place. And there was last year there was a report that there was a thing called some pump storage scheme. It's a big dams being planned in Western Ghats in the name of power storage. There was some 21,000 crore of project being approved by the Ministry of Environment and Forest without taking into consideration the environmental sensitivity. So, I'm talking about this thing, when you talk about system development, you have to respect the laws. And if the laws say the EIA impact assessment of the forest, when you do the assessment, it says that these projects should not come here, this sensitive area, then you have to respect that thing also. The political interference cannot override the scientific, assessment or anything. So I think we have to respect the science, we have to respect the nature, and we have to, when we talk about intersection, working of different ministries, so I think every ministry should do their own work. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change should focus on protection of forest, environment, climate change. They should not focus on ease of doing business. That is not their duty. For that, we have separate ministry. What MOFCC should do is to make sure that laws are strengthened, not relaxed. The states are properly supported in terms of finance, in terms of capacity, in terms of training to do this thing. And also one last thing I want to mention. If you are, when we say about restrict development activity, then we should have compensate the people. If people living there and if you stop the economic activity, then there should be some mechanism to compensate people to save the environment, to keep the potential environment. Some kind of compensation has to be given also to incentivize people to not do unsustainable activities. So these kind of things need bigger reforms. But I think political will is the basic criteria for bringing anything this kind of change.
Dr. Rajivan, my next question to you would be to you. While reading up for the cause for this particular level of devastation, I read somewhere that the collective data of IMD over the past 100 years shows that the rainfall has concentrated in areas that, especially the hilly regions of the Western Ghats, get twice the amount of Kerala's. I'm just talking about the Kerala. In Kerala, IMD's data shows that just the hilly regions get almost twice the state average of rainfall, and because of which because of the repeated events, rainfall events that is happening, this one thing was a culmination of culmination of all these events in and together. Now, what could have the rainfall gauging mechanism have done or can be done to control and gather data? Because at the end, data does matter. That data will be able to help us map a future.
Yeah, that is true. So along the in the Kerala, from if you go from the ocean, Arabian Sea, and along you go to eastwards. When you reaches the mountains, it's the rainfall peaks. So it's a big increasing trend of rainfall from the coast to the hilly regions like the Munnar and this places where the landslide occurs receives very heavy amount of rainfall. Then in the eastern part of the hills, again the rainfall decreases. So rainfall is maximum over the hills, and so as you said, the amount of rainfall received at these stations are much more than the average rainfall of Kerala state. That is true. And also the most important thing is that this rainfall amount also increasing with time. So because of the global warming and especially warming of Arabian Sea, the frequency of such heavy rainfall events is increasing everywhere, especially in Kerala. And Kerala, the characteristic of Kerala rainfall has changed a lot. And it used to be a kind of a moderate rain and spread over 24 hours, 48 hours. But now it is reduced the time of the hours. It rains in few hours, but when it rains very heavily. Okay, and the second aspect regarding the data monitoring, the data points as well as rain gauge measurements, I fully agree that over the hilly region, the rainfall measurements are not really up to the mark. We need to have more dense rainfall measurements, and also that will help to, for example, mapping the landslide prone areas, etc. Number two, also is for especially exclusively for landslide, we need to not only rainfall, we need to understand the slope, we need to understand the soil conditions, whether for some soil moisture. So that can be done. So people assume that it can be done only through satellites. It's of course satellites are very useful, there's no doubt about it, but we need a ground truth. So we need ground observation. So Kerala government should so in the state science and technology cell should really put good observations over these slopes, not only for rainfall but also for soil moisture and other parameters, slope, for example, slope and stability of the soil, etc. And then they can really then that data will be useful for studies to understand how the landslide occurs, and also it can be used for understanding landslide dynamics and ultimately prediction of landslides.
Dr. Rajivan, how can, because IMD, the prediction that comes is also helpful for a warning, to create warnings. How can a warning agency help in improving their warning system, and how can any climatology department help in aiding the warning system, so that again at the end of the, so that lives at this level, damage and destruction of property at this level is not repeated?
That is true. IMD, as I told in the beginning, that IMD is not responsible for landslide prediction. They only make the prediction for rainfall. And rainfall prediction for the last few years, last few years, it has improved a lot substantially. Thanks to better models, more observations, especially satellite observations, etc. So, but still, there is a scope for further improvement of rainfall prediction, especially the quantity of rainfall. For example, on that day, when it rained 230 millimeter or 23 centimeter or so. So I was told that the rainfall prediction from IMD was not set that high. It was showing only some 60 millimeter or 6 centimeter or 7 centimeter. So there's a big gap between what we observe and what they predict. So one example. So IMD's prediction system has improved substantially. There's no doubt about it, but there's still hope that they should improve, and especially along the Western Ghats. So the prediction of rainfall over the plain area is much more easier than prediction of rainfall over the mountainous regions like Western Ghats, Himalayas, slope of Himalayas. The prediction becomes much more difficult because of the influence of the topography and hills, etc. And we need very high resolution models to do that. Now at present we do it prediction at 12 kilometer. And 12 kilometer may not be really good for prediction of heavy rainfall events over mountainous region, especially Western Ghats. You need to have a very high resolution of maybe 2 or 3 kilometer models. So there is a lot of scope for improvement. So I'm very sure IMD will come out with such kind of models in next few years, and this prediction will improve.
Dr. Soman, I am going to throw a similar question to you now. You had mentioned, now Dr. Rajivan talked about the warning system itself, how the rainfall gauging itself can be improved as such. You earlier had mentioned how human intervention, there is a comprehensive need to get people aware of the hazards of living in these areas. But we all know that Kerala's population is dense, especially in the hilly regions, with tourism being one of the major economic factors in the state. People are the ones who have to be educated, made aware, and as Debaditya also said, they even have to be incentivized to keep nature together, to keep nature, to keep humans and nature in harmony with each other, so that what happened in Wayanad or what is happening in Himachal cannot or will not happen again. But how to go about it? Because again, people are looking at their day-to-day life. For them, these are the homes. This is where they live. They are looking at how to build their own livelihood. How do scientists make people their champions so that they also look at environment as something that they can live with rather than something that is against, considering what nature's fury has done as of today?
So if we look at what Dr. Rajivan said, naturally we have to, first thing, rainfall monitoring and prediction with an enhanced or improved network, we can get more data. And naturally, global models are also improving, and we are also improving. So that is one thing that can be done purely on the scientific, what you call using mostly remote sensing and methods. But when it comes to the stability of the rocks and fragility of the land, there is one component. I come to the next one after this one. So that is one, mostly we cannot, at the present level of our technological advancements like our satellites, which generally give 30 meter resolution photos, and we cannot depend on that and make the what you call the local level predictions. So that requires a lot of hard work on the ground by trained geologists, geographers, hydrogeologists, hydrologists, and soil scientists. This is a tremendous task. There is no escape from it, because if it is a sparsely populated area, you would have done all these things. But it's a thickly populated area where population centers are there. You have to study them intensively and zone out them and tell this is zone dash dash, this is a danger. So you decide whether you want to be here or not. The problem here is, as you said a word like livelihood. In Kerala's problem, I understand it is a part of livelihood, and tourism is one of the booming sectors of economy. But then the greed of the people, that is one segment of the people, to exploit the situation, that is a tourism interest, that is in the mountains, that is in the water bodies. That is all creating a lot of problem. There has to be some sort of responsible tourism. The beauty of the Western Ghat tourism is its biodiversity, its altitude, its geodiversity. If you are impacting on those two things, that natural resource base that is giving you all the good right now, it will not last for long. When it comes to the estuarine tourism, that is also picking up. There is no concept, regulatory mechanism, no principles on the water quality and other things, waste disposal and all these things. So tourism, yes, I understand, is one of the booming sectors of economy, but we have to have strict regulations, and that should be implemented. If you want to help the people out, the only way is science and technology has to come in a big way, zone out, not on the delivering talks. It is hard work on the ground. Show them this is a fragility of your region. If you are going to have a multi-story building here, it will have problem. And the tourism protocols, for example, it is only in Kerala, or in India, that you believe in multi-story concrete buildings as your tourist resorts. You go to other countries, depending on the local material availability and what you call the makeshift arrangement with good hygiene and these things, that culture also has to be imbibed. How can it come? It can come through legislation. It can come through implementing. The people will cooperate. We are missing out something somewhere. Good governance is the best thing, best remedy for all the what you call the peril. Relief from perils of people. Unfortunately, we lack it. Not in Kerala, the whole of the country, I would say. Though it is happening now, discussing Wayanad. Wayanad is happening everywhere. In Badrinath, in Silkaria, you know that everywhere.
Devaditya, taking off from there, I am going to present this last question to you. He talked about good governance. Good governance is something that can come at grassroots level, at district level, at state level, and at central level. For that, champions are needed. Talks are needed. It should not be reactionary. And what has happened in Western Ghat, in Wayanad, or Shiradi, or Shirur, it's a clarion call for intervention that will have long-lasting effects, because it's not the end. It probably is just the beginning. What can be done?
It's very I don't know what to say here, because the problems are so transdisciplinary. But I think we already discussed some of the solutions. Of course, awareness has to be there, because and this needs a long-term engagement with people also, and the policies has to be made in such a way that it also helps people in their livelihood, but also the development should not be unsustainable. Okay, we can always, if the Western Ghat is famous for its natural beauty and wildlife and everything, then we have to design a low footprint ecotourism policy, and we have to ensure that the tourism is not unsustainable. And these big projects, infrastructure, if the science says that this kind of activity should not be undertaken, so these aspirations also we have to somehow assess. And as I said, science, society, and the law and the political will, they all have to work in sync, and the law has to be informed. Law's policy has to be informed, and the same thing, when we inform the law, we also have to make the people aware, and also people who are executing it, and not only government. There's a role of civil society as well, in terms of educating people and scientists to inform this thing. So I think it has to be a multi-stakeholder problem, because the problem is polycentric, and there is no one single solution to it. And of course, climate change and this kind of events are going to increase. So we have to really think the way we want to see our country progress, the traditional way of development, or we want to see a holistic, more sustainable, and more scientifically informed, inclusive development. Okay, so I think this is what I can say.
Thank you, Devadityo. Thank you, Dr. Rajivan, and thank you, Dr. Soman, for joining me on this discussion. Our hearts go out to the people of Wayanad. May they find their family members. May the destruction and the death toll not increase anymore. But we see the evidence in front of it. We can hope. But then we also have to be prepared for the worst and hope this is the worst. There is nothing coming up, and what we have discussed today will be taken into consideration for people who have the authority, the political will to take this forward. And with that, I am Prija Arvind, and thank you for watching India Today SoSouth.